What's going on there, folks? Earthmaster here, checking in on this Wednesday night, May 20th, 2020. There's a whole bunch of 20s right there today. 5/20/2020. Interesting date there. Nothing negative happened, at least for me anyway, on this date. Taking a look at the earthquake 3D globe here shows quite a bit of earthquake activity on the ramp up over the past 24 hours. Looking at, of course, out here on the west coast in California and also in Nevada. Some pretty good activity. Still swarming out there in Nevada with quite a few threes, and they even had a 5-pointer here. I believe it was earlier this morning or late last night. We'll check that out here in a little bit. I do want to cover the rest of the globe real quick. Earthquake activity picking up out here in Alaska as well, along the Aleutian Islands, with quite a few fours and some larger magnitudes kicking up right there. Upper fours, actually 4.6 kicking off there in that subduction area of the Aleutian Islands there with the Pacific Plate. Actually very active out here on the northwest part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, as you guys can see here. Some of these redder rings indicating older earthquake activity, and they will drop off here within about after about 24 hours or so of being on the globe. You can follow that line of activity pretty much right through the subduction area of Japan, all the way down here into the Indonesia Islands region as well, where they've seen some a cluster of quakes there, some fours, and even a 5-pointer popping up there earlier today. Taking a look over here, let's zoom back out a little bit here. Over here towards this part of the world, Mediterranean Sea, seeing a 5.7 earthquake, but not in the region of where this other swarming and where the other 5.8 took place there last night. That 5.8 should be just about dropping off the globe here pretty soon. That 5.7 striking well west over here in the Mediterranean Sea region there. Further increase in pressure in that area. This area can definitely see some large earthquakes as they have been recorded in the past. Definitely an area to keep an eye on. But for now, a bunch of fours and some fives in their upper fives. Shooting down here to South America region, down there near Chile. It looks like they had a couple fours and even a 5-pointer. It's been fairly quiet down there, far as large earthquakes go. This is a major subduction area when it comes to large earthquakes. This one tops the charts down here. Can't remember the magnitude offhand, but one of the world's biggest earthquakes taking place down there in South America in history. But over the past few months or so, it's been relatively mild as far as activity goes. Once again, going into North America, we'll shoot over here to a different map here. Let's go ahead and see if I can bring that up real quick here. With the USGS one map, obviously it's one map, right? One day, all magnitudes here, looking at the west coast, and relatively pretty active, folks. As you can see, a lot of red circles indicating recent earthquakes. I want to make sure I turn the speaker off there. Okay. And yeah, take a look at Nevada. I mean, it's just, I almost choked on that there. Take a look at Nevada. A lot of earthquake activity still striking this area, where they seen that large 6-pointer strike there last week now, right? I believe it's been over a week. Still having a swarm of earthquake activity out there. And of course, that's expected. 374 aftershocks at least today in the region. We could go back 7 days, and this number is going to explode here. Hopefully it doesn't burn down my computer. Give it a second. Oh, this is taking a long time. Oh, that took a long time. So obviously a lot of earthquake activity there. 1,874 earthquakes here in Nevada, folks, or at least within the vicinity. It's definitely a major rupture out there, right? I believe, and it's a possibility that this may be a new fault system, a relatively new shallow fault system here that seismologists have not really discovered until now, because you can see it plain as day, the direction, right? Kind of like a left to right on your screen direction of the fault rupture there. Very obvious over about, what are we looking at there? About 20 miles or so of rupture out there in the Nevada desert. Just this is actually a pretty incredible view. And you can see lots of red circles still out there, indicating recent earthquakes within the last hour. It's kind of a big deal out there. Not volcanic, folks. This is purely plate tectonics and a new fault system, which I've mentioned here. I'm sure if it hasn't already been announced already, that's relatively new or undiscovered, if you will. A little earthquake over here by Tonopah. Looks like a 2.8. It's possible those folks may have felt it over there, being relatively close to the town, but the depth of this earthquake at about 10 kilometers below surface. So, yeah, possibility. A few folks may have felt it. Looking at the depths of all these earthquakes here, they vary. They definitely vary, but there's a lot of surface quaking out there as well. Very shallow surface quaking, and throughout Nevada, we see all these different fault systems. There's hundreds out there, and they're relatively shallow fault systems here at the surface. So it's I should say it's relatively common to see these shallow earthquakes out there, and even with a few deep ones out there, doesn't necessarily mean any volcanic activity. It's just a ground shifting and whatnot down there in that area. I'm still tempted to go out there and just check it out, folks. It's on my to-do list. I mean, I just right now kind of looking at possibilities of heading down there, maybe doing a little tour, if you will, of that area. If I can get enough support from the people out here, I will be heading down there. And I'll do some live streaming, and I'll do some aerial views with my drone, and also take a look at and talk to a few people down there, see what may be going on down there. But I need the support of the folks out there, so if you want to help out, you know what to do. But it's in the near future, folks. In the near future, that I will be taking a trip down there. With all this activity, it's definitely happening. This activity is still kind of, let's get rid of the all magnitudes here, because it is taking up a huge amount of memory here on this system. It's pretty crazy. Hold on. Let's go back to the 1 day all magnitudes here. And like I said, just for the 1 day, there's 300 and, what do we got, 300 and something quakes there. Let's go back up the chart here. Yeah, 394 quakes within this region here. Activity over here towards Mono Lake region and the Long Valley supervolcano is relatively calm, at least far as the directional of the quakes here. We did see kind of like a migration of quakes leading towards this area, some thinking that may be magma related towards the supervolcano, but that activity has calmed down, and purely a lot of plate tectonics being at work here in this vicinity. Let's see here. Let's go down here to southern Cal and take a look here at the Ridgecrest region. Still seeing quite a bit of earthquake activity, and that's going to continue. It's been coming up on, what, almost a year now since they had that 7-pointer last year around July 5th. No major quakes in that region. A good thing for the folks of Ridgecrest area. And once again, folks, no activity out here on the southern portion of the San Andreas Fault. That's going to be this dark line, dark red line there. The southern section of the San Andreas Fault is an area that most people, if you talk to them, most seismologists and geologists agree upon that this is going to be the area of major rupture, and up to an 8.1 when it does decide to unzip. It's possible it could be fused. Who knows? I mean, this thing might be, eventually, the pressure is going to have to be released here, folks. I don't believe it's fused together. I mean, it's getting there. It's getting wound up, that's for sure. A little bit of swarming down here. Around the Salton Sea region. And we've seen this before in the past. Quite a bit of activity. I think about 3 or 4 years ago, we've seen a large cluster cluster of earthquake storms down there. And I think it lasted almost a couple weeks or so. Kind of put the seismologists on edge, where they actually kind of put out a warning, if you will, earthquake watch, earthquake advisory for the San Andreas fault system here because of that swarming. And this swarming down here is at the edge of the San Andreas fault system. So they were kind of concerned about it, but we are watching it. Right now it's nothing major, just kind of a few microquakes popping off in that region. Heading up north here, a little bit of creeping earthquakes up here, just south of the Bay Area, which sits up north. There's Soledad. As we follow that plate boundary up to the north, we can see obvious activity around the geysers in Northern California. This is very common. Further up north here, no more activity out here along the Cascadia subduction zone, at least today. I do want to bring up let's see if I got that. Let's bring that up here real quick. Tremor map. Here's a very good what's it? PNSN is a Pacific. What is it? Pacific. Oh shoot! Here, I can't remember the name of it there. Anyway, it's a very good site to check out some tremor out there. Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. Sorry. My neck still hurts. I'm trying to lift it up, but then again, it starts giving me these cramps here. So that's my excuse. This is over the period of between May 11th and May 21st, right? But then again, it's May 21st on certain sides of the world. Check out all the activity. This is slow slip event detection along the Cascadia subduction zone here. And this goes back, like I said, over a period of about, what are we looking at? 10 days, right? 10 days of activity here. Really active along the southern portion of the Cascadia subduction zone. And even looking into parts of Northern California, we see some very deep tremor being picked up here. And how do I know that? Well, you got to picture the Cascadia subduction zone, which sits off the coast, right? The surface where it starts to subduct is right off the coast of Northern California and extends into Oregon, up into Washington, and into Vancouver Island region, just off the coast there. So the further inland you go with these tremors, the deeper these tremors are being picked up here. So we've seen some major deep movement here in the Northern California along the Cascadia subduction zone. And that area is just south of the Lassen region, or right around Mount Lassen area, but well inland and well deep into the Cascadia subduction zone. It's I've never seen that before. I've never seen all these tremors being picked up well inland like that. Of course, I've seen them being picked up like they are in Oregon and throughout Washington, but the inland quakes is really interesting, and that proves to me right there that there's obvious slippage along the entire portion of the Cascadia subduction zone, except for the locked area. I know we did see that 5.5 earthquake, but that was well off the coast and not even near the Cascadia subduction zone there in Northern California. So with all this pressure still building up down here, with all this slippage, if you will, we're looking at a continual buildup along the Cascadia subduction zone at the surface area. I do want to bring up this little chart I haven't shown in quite a while. Okay, that'll work. This here is a Cascadia, kind of like, if you will, an outline of it, or a model, if you will. You got the North American plate. See if I can bring that up just a tad bit here. It's not I'm not for sure why it wants to be transparent. Transparency is good sometimes, but oh man, there we go. That'll work a little bit. So North American plate, right? Over to the north, or I should say the upper right hand corner. The further south you go down to, you get into Canada, Washington. You got Seattle marked. And of course, this extends down into Oregon and Northern California as well. But this stops here at about mid-level Washington area, central Washington, if you will. You got the subduction quakes. That's going to be the red circle where it says subduction zone earthquakes of 1700, where a 9.1 earthquake struck back then. So we're looking at way over 300 years of buildup. And on average, we're looking at between 300 to 500 year intervals of earthquakes in that area, and large ruptures, if you will, along the Cascadia subduction zone. We see more common these deeper quakes within the subducting area inland. You see the deep quakes on the right bottom hand corner, 1949, 1965, and 2001. There we've seen a couple 6-pointers. Those were well inland. Very deep quakes there within the subducting area, not the locked area, but more or less the subducting area underneath the North American plate, where the Juan de Fuca plate subducts there. We also get those crustal earthquakes there, the deformation crustal earthquakes. Looks like 900 AD and 1872 into parts of Washington as well. But the big ones there are those locked areas there, the subduction zone quakes, earthquakes further to the west, and that sits off the coast of the entire west coast, and including Vancouver Island as well. That's an area to watch for some major earthquake activity, major plate movement. But like I said, we also get these further inland quakes. And they can be rather large as well, but they do not cause as much damage due to the depth of the quakes itself there. But something to watch here. Every once in a while, I like to throw up this map here because a lot of people don't understand the dynamics of this area on Earth here, the Cascadia zone, Cascadia subduction zone. It's very similar to I don't know. It's kind of, I guess, independent of itself, but it could produce a major quake, folks. Talking about Japan-sized earthquakes there back in 2011, that 9-pointer they had. We could see something very, very similar if this thing ever rocks and decides to unzip there. But for now, like I said, we're seeing, like I mentioned here, pretty good movement along the Cascadia subduction zone at a deep level. And once again, this is tremor being picked up by very, very sensitive equipment through the PNSN network. And it's not earthquakes, it's measured on a different scale. Slow slip tremor is the word here. And it's definitely not felt by people, but very sensitive equipment there. Anyway, folks, I wanted to cover that a little bit on the Cascadia subduction zone. Let's see what else we got here. Let's get rid of that. Where'd it go? Trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, hold on a second. There we go. So, yeah. It's getting interesting out there, folks. I did see a very, very deep earthquake out here along the Fiji Islands region here just about an hour ago. That 5-pointer, 5.1 earthquake striking 500 kilometers below the surface there. Over the past, I don't know, week, this area out here has been pretty quiet. So all this activity you've seen out here on the globe, relatively new within about 24 to 36 hour period, and with a deep movement out here, very deep movement there in Fiji Islands area. I'm sure we're going to see a ramp up of larger earthquakes over here towards the west. And I did mention before that we should see activity die down out here along North American plate, but that is not the case right now in Nevada. Like I said, we're still seeing earthquake activity there. Looks like they just had another one. Let's see where it went to here real quick here. Was that just a 3-pointer? But 3-pointer on top of 1,800 and something earthquakes over the last week, and I'm sure it's more than that if we were to extend beyond the week. But anyway, folks, it's getting pretty active out here. Worldwide activity is definitely picking up, and definitely good idea to be on guard for larger movement out here. Like I said, Southern California, with the lack of activity out there still in the San Andreas fault system, good idea to be prepared out there. Just be prepared anywhere out here on the globe. I mean, it's a very active tectonic very active tectonic planet out here, and that's a good thing. I do appreciate plate tectonics. I think all of us should. Anyway, folks, have a good night out there. I'm gonna jump off here, finish up the barbecue, and we'll chat to you guys a little bit later. Please stay safe out there.